All right. And with that, we are live. It is 12 noon, and I think we're actually a little bit late, but because StreamYard has that countdown and
Hmm.
gets everybody prepared for the show. And it's actually a really good application, which I want to use a little bit more of. And today is one of those days. We have our good friends, the Crimis, here, Chris and Steve,
Hi,
live from
everybody.
North
Hello.
Carolina.
Hello,
And,
friends.
and they're with us on the first Friday of every month. And we normally take some very interesting journeys into the world of the arcane and esoteric and mythical and classical. And we're doing something a little bit different today due to a popular demand. And the popular demand was, can you talk about something fucking useful for a change?
We heard you.
we heard. We're useful
Oh,
sometimes.
useful?
Uh,
You
uh,
want
uh,
useful?
uh,
We'll
uh,
Mm.
give you
uh,
useful.
Enough of this dredging up of the dross of the past.
Right.
We need strategies for living now.
Yes.
So the Crimis have heard you.
And we're very
And
excited
they've got
about
a bunch of great stuff on gardening and copper and what they call electrification. So we're gonna dig into that. See how I did that? Dig into that. But before we do that, and we find out what's going on with them, we have to give a shout out to our sponsor, which is True Hemp Science. Now, I have an action item for people today. First of all, let me tell you about True Hemp Science, then we'll get into the action item. True Hemp Science is a sponsor of the show. In fact, you guys use their products, right?
I do.
We do.
I
Oh,
do.
for sure.
Yeah, and I would say I can only handle half a gummy, half of the high-end gummies and that's fine for me for night. And I
And
have, and I do, and I have some of the moon dust in my Turkish tea.
and I use the beautiful jars that they come in.
Oh, those are nice jars, aren't they?
I am smitten with the jars.
They're almost worth the price of the product.
They're so
Almost.
beautiful. I love
They
them. And if you hold them up to the light, this is beautiful color comes through. So yeah, I'm using them to store my herbs in. So there.
And apparently, I talked with Joan. Apparently, those jars you could use them for something very specific as well, and it does have to do with the light.
Yes.
So,
Yes. And
um,
and I can't remember what that is either, but there were certain qualities of light that are very good for preserving the herbs, but there's some other quality to it, and maybe Joan knows.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, but they're
let me
beautiful. I love them.
let me do a visual here for our sponsor, and give me 1 second here, so you can see what we're looking at. So this is truehempscience.com. And we talked a little bit about the moon dust and the gummies, but there's a bunch of other products there as well
Oh, really?
that are very specific in terms of their application, inflammation, pain, sort of saturating and lubricating your bodies and your body and your cells. And if you're interested in finding out more, you can always go into the site, speak to an expert, and you can actually make an appointment with our friend Chris. And if you spend $100 or more on the product, you get free product. $150 or more, and you get free shipping. So you heard it straight from the Crimis. You hear it from me every day. And now here comes the action item that I want to uh, have you guys help us out with here. Just pull this up.
Okay.
Um, let's see, right
You
there.
got us intrigued. An action item.
An action item. So Chris has been nominated, and True Hemp Science has been nominated to participate in the best CBD purveyor in Austin
Oh,
through
nice.
the Austin Chronicle. Okay,
Huh.
and I'm going to put this link in the chat, but I want to give you just a kind of a bird's eye view what the link looks like. Here, give me 1 sec. We stop this share and let me go over here, and we'll give a visual of just. I mean, this is just basically it's just the landing page um, of um, of where you're going to go, and it's going to be. Let's see, right here. So this is what it looks like: CBD purveyor. Right in your nomination here. Okay, and then you click on that. Now it's a two-step process. they're going to ask for your email, right? But you can always, if the Austin Chronicle sends you an email, you can always say stop, right? Cancel the
Mhm.
email. So the call to action here is to help our friend Chris reach to the top of the best CBD purveyor in Austin through the
Oh,
Austin
nice.
Chronicle, which is really the kind of the New York Times of the city of Austin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the link in here and put that right into the chat. So we'll be talking about this over the next few shows because I hope that we can get him in there and get some recognition in his own backyard.
Wouldn't that
And
be nice?
yeah, and you guys have been really good about jumping in, and you really helped carry Lisa almost all the way to the finals when she was trying to get on the stage of the Hollywood Bowl. So this is a group that actually gets involved. So
Very
there
good.
you go. Give our friend Chris a little bit of a hand
Very
there.
nice.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
All right.
Yeah.
And yeah. So all right, let's talk about copper in the garden. When did you guys come across this?
Oh, a long time ago.
Years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, a long time ago. We came across, I guess, when we were doing, possibly when we were taking the biogeometry classes with Robert Gilbert and his Vesica Institute. I think that could have been the introduction to Phil Callahan's work.
Mm-hmm.
And Phil Callahan did a lot of work with paramagnetism.
Mhm.
He was actually in the service in World War II. He was stationed in Ireland, and he came across the Irish round towers. And I think his background was in electronics. And so he was very attentive, and he had that quality, almost like the permaculture training encourages you to do, to be observant of your surroundings and to take cues from what you see.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was noticing that the Irish round towers had very lush green grass around them. And he finally figured out that they were all made of basalt, which is slightly paramagnetic. It's not heavily magnetic, but it's paramagnetic, which means it has a light magnetic force. And interestingly, I just learned recently that when you're using these paramagnetic instruments in the garden, you don't want the really heavy, strong magnetism. The weaker, for some reason, magnetism has a more beneficial effect on the soil. So the basalt is the stone that is used primarily in these towers. Mm-hmm. And you can replicate those towers by making a cylindrical, I guess you could get like a copper.
Want a toy?
Yeah, this would be great.
Just quickly, Phil Callahan's, he was an engineer, and his job was in World War II in Ireland was with all the antennas. Mm-hmm. That was his whole
radio.
Radio antennas, setting that all up for the Allies. So that's his background.
Mm-hmm. And an interesting thing that he noticed as well was that the moths and butterflies, but mostly moths, and their little antennas are actually antenna receivers. So when you look at the structure, maybe you can see there's some illustrations in his book. When you look at his illustrations of the antennas on the moths, they have little side bars going down the central bar, mm-hmm. and they are receiving the frequencies from plants that are not healthy. So if you wonder why all the insects flock to your sick plants, they're not making them sick. They're attracted to the plant that's already weak, and its signal is weak. So their antennas, as a receiver, pick up this frequency, and they gravitate toward those plants, and their job is to do cleanup. The insects are not there to damage the plants. They're there to clean up what's not healthy. So he realized that this is what was going on, and then he got more into doing and work with electronics and antennas.
Right.
But in his observation of the round towers, and this is a great example. This is I guess it's a ceramic one, which used to have a wonderful pyramidal cap. But I think the gnomes in the garden took it because it was there and then it wasn't, and I can't find it anywhere.
So that's ceramic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
clay.
I mean, this is what,
Clay.
an Ikebana container?
I don't know where I got this.
Thrift shop, I'm sure.
It could have been that Chihuahua was getting rid of it or something. I don't know. Somehow I usually I know exactly where everything came from, but this one I don't quite remember. But this is hollow in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
So we have ordered some basalt powder online, and we're going to fill this with basalt. And I'll do a little makeshift cap, and maybe I can get some clay or Sculpey or something, and I'll put a pyramidal cap on top of it, and we'll put that in the garden to enhance the actually what it does is it enhances the microorganisms in the soil, and that's what all of these things do. And the broad name for this type of work is called electroculture.
Electroculture.
Right. So maybe it's a knockoff from permaculture.
Yeah.
Not really sure how that came about, but electroculture.
Yeah, it might be earlier than permaculture. This goes back. This does go back into the late 1800s, really, with the
1700s,
really,
1800s.
yeah, this sort of thing, and then the magnetic stuff
Leave that up
with
for
the
a few minutes.
foundation of electricity.
I'm about to poke the bear. That sounds really Tartarian.
It
Robert,
could be.
you just might be right.
It could be. Except they're busy building cities, not gardens.
Maybe they were building gardens.
They must have eaten
Yeah.
something.
They had to eat something. It seems to me also, I don't know if you guys caught the Astro Weather, but I did a little bit on Jerry Brown. And
Today?
and Jerry Brown, if you go back and
Jerry
you
Brown.
look at his kind of historical record and his stances, he would have been into this. Right. Jerry Brown
so?
because he was very into people like what's his name? The dome guy.
Buckminster Fuller.
But he was a big Bucky Fuller guy.
Was he?
He actually had Stuart Brand as part of his first administration. The guy who did the whole Earth catalog, the
Right.
That guy.
And that came out of South Carolina, didn't it?
So he would. I mean, this is right up Jerry Brown's alley, and so he would have been very. I'm sure he's an odd guy, and when you go back and look at his record, he's much more conservative than people understand. Like his stance on spending and physical spending was much more in line with somebody who'd be a hardcore conservative. In fact, he used to have this rug in Sacramento that had a big hole in it, and people would ask him, well, why don't you replace the rug or get it fixed? And he says, I leave it there on purpose for when people come in here and ask for money.
Oh, interesting.
He said, yeah, if you come here and ask for money, it's going to cost me $500 million to replace this rug. So
he had a show on WBAI in New York that we used to listen to.
We really liked it. Yeah.
Back in the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now you guys had a tough time with your garden last year. We talked about
God.
that.
Yeah.
Did you use the copper last year, or did you kind of? Okay. So
no.
Yeah, that was one of the things I wanted to talk about.
We've known about it, and it had a revival in the late 70s, I guess. Even Secrets of the Soil, which is like the famous book that got into alternative gardening back in the 70s.
Right.
So that talks a little bit about it, and Phil Callahan started talking about this after World War II, and then it all got squashed. Or just disappeared, or who knows. So there's actually a fairly significant revival of it now.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh yeah, we remember this stuff.
Right. Yeah. I don't know how I came across it. I love the sidebars on YouTube. So I guess it caught my eye.
So we have friends that live here in Fredericksburg, and they started their own channel, and their most successful video is about adding copper to the garden.
Okay. Is it?
Yeah, I mean, the average views on most of their videos are around maybe 250 to 300. the copper in the garden video has gotten 15,000 views.
Oh my goodness.
Really? Well, that's quite a bump.
Really? That's
Yeah,
wonderful.
well, then maybe
So
this one will go.
So
huge.
if you guys wanted to get some traction
Yeah.
and some views, and you've sent me some beautiful images already, do a couple of YouTube shorts.
Yeah, well, we
Oh.
did put one.
Huh.
We
okay.
did put one up on our Vimeo. Logosophia has a Vimeo page where we that's like our storehouse of everything that
Mhm.
we do. And so there is a short one up there, where Chris is talking about it.
It didn't take much to light me up
And-
about this
and
when I
it's-
came
and it's-
across it.
And it's real easy. That's the good.
Oh, it's
that's
like
the other
rolling
good
off a
thing
log.
about it.
Yeah.
So we can yeah. So is something else you had so the other thing with the towers, so I'll probably douse for that with this.
Mm.
So in other words, so the towers are filled at certain proportions, the Irish
Mhm.
round towers, so that
Yeah.
they are tuned to whatever it is they need to be tuned to.
Well, here's a
Right.
curious thing, right? So I remember initially reading years ago about the Irish round towers. And when I was a kid, I don't know if I have the picture here. There was a painting that hung in our living room, and there was an Irish round tower in it.
Mhm.
And I was fascinated with this painting as a child. So I always had an interest in these. But in the actual towers, these would be windows and openings.
Mhm.
And the initial story about who made these towers is, it was that because the Vikings were coming over, or the Visigoths or whoever it was, and were marauding, and they would run into these. The people would run into these towers for protection and to hide, right?
Yeah.
Well, for one thing, to start off, to blow that theory, the door would be like 10 feet up from the ground. So here
Mhm.
would be the first opening. Okay, so that's odd. And it's hollow inside. And
Right.
there are windows placed strategically in
Yeah.
different locations on the tower. So Phil Callahan was saying, well, that's absurd, because if you were running from someone who was trying to kill you, you wouldn't go up into a tower where you couldn't get out and they could just light a fire in virtually a chimney, and that would be the end of it, right?
Right.
So that
Right.
makes no sense. So he saw it from his electronics perspective.
Right.
And he was saying, no, I believe what was happening was they would tune these. And this would go back to your Tartarian background and say,
Right.
they would they would fill these with soil to a certain mark,
Right.
and it would be a frequency emitter. Okay,
Interesting.
so it would emanate frequencies at a certain
I
decibel.
wonder if that could scale, like be scaled out to the musical scale. I wonder if
I'm
there's
sure.
Yeah, because of the proportions, and
Right,
that's
yeah.
the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So then, depending on where the openings are, it would be played like a flute. Right. So when
Right.
the wind would pass through, it would do something intentional.
Right,
Oh,
and the musical scale, as you know, is proportion to the planets
right.
and their distances between each other, and all that
Yeah.
sort of stuff. It's
Yeah.
the whole thing is a whole symphony.
Wouldn't it be great if we could just live more like this?
Well, we are.
Well, this is it. This is on our scale.
That's what we're doing.
We're scaling it down.
I mean, in general,
As
this
people,
is one
as
of
a
the things about Pluto and Aquarius that I think is
Mhm.
interesting, is that we're bringing in some interesting technologies and
Yes.
things that could really change our lives in a dramatic way, in a more holistic way. I hope John Levi is watching today, because
Oh,
I
that would
think
be nice.
I think he'd have some interesting things to say about this.
Oh, I'll bet he would know quite a bit about it.
Yeah, I noticed that
definitely.
Chengiz was very interested in the.
Cengiz is
yeah.
very interested. Yes.
He's-
Yes.
Yep.
He's
Cengiz
been grumpy lately.
he's been grumpy lately, but he's been.
I don't know if
We've had an infestation of mice, and he's been catching them. I mean, I don't know, in the last few months he's caught maybe 10, but he can't kill them because he hasn't had the teeth. So
Right.
he'll bring them upstairs, and then drop them in his food dish, or go you know.
Then they run under the couch.
Then they run away, and now they've developed this thing where they're inside our stove hood,
exhaust fan.
exhaust fan, and they're eating the aluminum that has the grease
in
on
the
it.
filter.
Oh no.
And I've caught 3.
Well, that's kind of interesting because they're eating the grease, right?
Yeah.
right,
Yes.
but they're eating the aluminum too. And I don't know,
It's
maybe it's
chewing.
making them stronger. I don't know the deal.
Yeah.
Anyway, I put a trap up
They'll
there.
be like Wolverine, right? They'll be
Yeah.
like the mouse version of Wolverine.
Right, you know, but
Yeah.
they're aluminum, so they'll be easily bent. I don't know what the deal is. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
anyway,
Well, I'm not sure what to say about that.
No.
yeah.
Well, we're on it.
anyway, you know,
Cheney's on it, and we're
He gets an
helping
A.
it
He gets an A for effort. And
yeah,
that's
he
right.
does.
he's, you know,
For
he's
execution.
13, keeps him interested in the world.
Right.
Yeah.
So when I look at your little tower there, it also reminds me of obelisks, and
Yes.
people don't really understand the nature of obelisks. They are basically telluric wands. I mean, that's what they are,
Mhm.
and
Yep.
they're pulling telluric energy into the ground. That's the function and the role that they play.
Right.
And this seems very akin to that as well.
Yes.
So yeah, back,
And to put it in the right place. So it's all lithopuncture was what it's called, acupuncture for the earth.
so back in the late 90s, early 2000s, when we were taking the classes with Robert, we came across another person by the name of Marco Pogachnik, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Polish researcher. And he was calling it lithopuncture, and he was going around and doing certain structures on the ground that, yes, would be at maybe at a crossroads of telluric energies or some such thing. And that all comes under the same rubric.
So in our first get together here in the Hill Country, the Crimis were with us, and Steve and Chris did a dowsing demonstration at
Right, that was fun.
It was great. So, Steve, are you dowsing when you go to plant these towers? Is that what you're doing?
I will. I will. I
Yeah, we
will
haven't-
douse. I'll douse the amount, you know, or at least, you know, find you can fill it up and then douse to where it says this is enough.
Oh, that's good.
You know, that kind of thing. There's all sorts of different ways to ask the questions.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's a part of it, and especially because this is all dealing with electromagnetics and beneficials for the soil. So yeah, so definitely. Sometimes I doubt, even when I put like a plant or especially a tree in, you know, I'll douse which direction it should face, which one it wants to be.
Is the location beneficial?
You know.
And for people who aren't familiar with dowsing themselves, generally what you do is you have any kind of a pendulum. It could be a penny on a string. It doesn't matter.
Copper.
It could be copper. But first you would ask permission. May I do this? Is this correct? Or do I have permission to do this? And would this tree be good in this location? And you test to see, if you're a beginner, what is a yes for you and what is a no for you, because it's not the same across the board. So some people, a yes is a left-hand spin on the pendulum. For most people, it's a right-hand spin, but not always. So that's what you have to learn first, and that's all according to you. And then you would observe. And some people think it takes a while to get a feel for it. So some people, when they see an experienced dowser and the thing is spinning very quickly, or they just let it spin for like 2 seconds and stop,
Right.
they think, oh, that person is just controlling it. Well, yes
Right.
and no.
Right.
Because what's actually happening is you don't really need the pendulum. It's reading internal movements from your own body of knowing, your internal knowing. So it's just picking up on something that's a subtle movement within you.
Right.
So in a way, yes, you are doing it. But
Right.
this is an outward expression of an inward knowing.
Right. That was my argument with Robert Gilbert, the person we studied biogeometry from, because he kept on wanting it to be an objective science. Well, dowsing is not an objective science. How could it be? You know, it's coming through your body. You're the instrument. It's just expressing itself through the pendulum.
You could think of it as
you
an
know,
antenna.
because if it was an objective science, just hanging it, from the ceiling and putting it under something, then it would move. If it was an objective science, but it's not. It's coming out of you and coming out of your life.
That makes sense.
Well, Heisenberg would say that just by paying attention to it, it's no longer.
Yes.
Well, that's yes. And the focus is, focus is extremely important in dowsing.
And really experienced dowsers can just use their hands. They can just feel with their hands.
So the old guys with the Y-shaped stick running around.
Yeah.
Right.
They're still around.
Yeah.
So you guys sent me some pictures. We had
Yeah.
about 20 pictures, and they're all in sequence. And it looks like it's your deployment of the copper in your garden.
Right.
Okay.
So I've got a little, and I've got some stuff here on the side to give a little tutorial, at least a small level tutorial. So that's the thing that Chris was finding. There's actually, like I said, there's been a lot of videos on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the best is Van Doorne.
I love this man who is from Europe. His name is Yannick Van Doorne, Doorne.
Mm-hmm.
And he's Belgian, living in France. He speaks English, and he has a lot of YouTube videos. And most of them, maybe a third of them are in English. The rest are in French. And there's no translation for some reason on YouTube for French. I can get translations for Turkish if I want to get a Turkish recipe, but I can't get this to translate. So I try to at least observe.
Right.
But what I find is a lot of people who do the videos, and he's wonderful. I love him. He's very gentle, very sweet. You just love the man. He's very sweet and unassuming.
Mm-hmm.
And he really has been at this a long time, and he knows it inside and out.
Right.
But what I'm finding is I can't find anybody to show me how to make this particular antenna. Everybody shows you the finished product. Oh, yeah, make these antennas. Yeah. But, well, how do I do it? And we'll show you what we're talking about in a minute. But I especially like Yannick Van Doorne. He's very good. And then there's another American fella, maybe in his 30s. His name is Matt Roeske, Roeske, and he's got a tremendous amount of videos. So I think if you just did a search on electroculture, you'd find him. He's all over the place.
Right. He's a little hard for us to take.
Yeah, but that's okay. He's very good, and he promotes it.
Good.
And he's done a tremendous amount of videos. So
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't remember what his site is. Can't remember
Right.
his site. But.
So anyway, yeah. So at least Yannick has a fair amount of how to do things,
Mhm.
and we'll just bring out some of our toys to show.
Well,
you
didn't we just find a really good interview where he did show how to do the antennas? Right.
Yeah.
Because he was being interviewed, and the person who interviewed him was very good. She kept asking him, well, could you please explain to people, how do you construct this? And that's bingo. That's what I was looking for. So we can get into that a little bit.
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. So bring up the pictures and we can kind of sing along with Mitch.
Okay. Follow the bouncing ball.
Yeah.
Let's see. All right. Here we go. So we have our little.
I need wire.
Let's see how this works.
I only have the small ones. I just have the big rolls. Not open yet.
Okay.
So this is the first picture that you sent me here. And what do we got going on here?
So, okay.
It's called a Lakovsky coil. Lakovsky. Lakovsky was a Russian researcher.
Mm-hmm.
So these coils will do a similar thing to the round towers and similar thing to the antennas. And it's made with copper. And it's very similar to like these. Well, I've had this copper bracelet like forever, but these are open. They're not connected.
Okay.
So it creates some kind of an electromagnetic attraction for the energies that are in the atmosphere, and helps to ground them into the earth. And it does the same thing as the antennas do, where it enlivens the soil.
Right. I mean, this looks like kind of your basic audio cable.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
we can
copper
use,
again.
yeah. So, I mean, most of this was like wires we've had lying around, anything with copper. And so we've gotten very adept at stripping wires. And this is like one of my father's old tools, and it's old and wobbly, but it still works. It has different size holes
Right.
that you
Yeah.
can put around the cable to strip them.
Right.
So that makes things a little easier, and you just have to strip off a little bit at the ends. So, and yeah, so you can put them on a branch on the south side of the tree. So this is especially with our fruit trees and our bushes, and and we put them on just as this like 5-day freeze hit us.
Right.
And I'd say, so they're supposed to help with that kind of thing. And because basically everything gets enlivened, and we, so I'd say our apple and peach tree in the back
I'm amazed.
made it really well, and there's all sorts of little fruit on it. So it's possible that it helped them get through that.
Yeah.
Yes. So
go
our
ahead.
apple tree last year, we have this lovely Gold Rush apple, which is an exquisite apple. It's very sweet, ripens in October. It's sort of a beautiful yellow with a pink blush. It's a wonderful apple. I was afraid we were going to lose it last year. It was sickly. It was dropping leaves. It didn't give us any fruit whatsoever. And it's never been a great producer. We have a little trouble here. This is not an easy place for us to grow things. So I'm not saying that the Lakovsky coil is what cured it. It was already looking like it was making a rebound, but we did put the coil on that tree, and it did make it through that frost. It wasn't a frost; it was a hard freeze. It was brutal, and so it was loaded with flowers, and I have high hopes that it will be healthy this year. It was not healthy; it looked very sickly. So I'm hoping that what happens is over time, this enlivens the soil. So it's only on like 2 months. I think we did it February something, 5th maybe. Okay, we're already up to April. And it takes time. It could be a year or two, but each year the soil will get better and better. So the microorganisms will proliferate, and it should help the whole area.
Right. So is this a reference to XTC, Steve? Apple Venus?
Apple Venus, that's right. Yeah, and of course, and Venus, of course. Yeah. Well, Chris is a lot of our garden is what's called synoptic.
Oh yeah, you could say
Synoptic. In other words, you would put we put the astrological, the planetary influence on the particular plant on these little stakes all over the place.
Right. So
plus it helps us remember too. But so yeah, Apple is ruled by Venus, and the metal associated with Venus is copper.
Oh right. I forgot about that.
That's interesting that the apple is ruled by Venus and Eve.
Yes.
Right.
Venus bites the apple, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So just to get one more fine point in about these Lakovsky coils is that you have 2 ways that you can apply it. You can either hang it in the branches on the south side of the trunk and get yourself a nice little compass. And so you know exactly what you're doing and get it just right. Or you can lay it on the ground around the trunk, and then the opening would face due north.
We have pictures of that coming up.
Okay, cool. All right. Let's show another picture from your electrified garden. All right. What do we have here?
So that's a little blueberry bush, a young one.
Right.
And we've put the coil on the ground and facing due north. And this is also a lot of our things struggle. So this one has been struggling for several years. It almost died, and then it made a comeback. And so this should enhance its growth and help it come along.
Looks like it's budding a little bit there.
And remember, this was back in February. We've had such an early spring here. It's crazy.
Yeah.
We are like a month ahead, which is not good.
Yeah, January and February it was in the 60s, and then March is when we got the freeze.
Right.
So everything was rushing along. So the other thing with these Lakovsky coils is that maybe, I don't know. Anyway, it's kind of hard to describe, but they're embedded one into another.
Oh,
So you can make, so that's something, I don't know if we have time to talk about it.
the
but
multi-wave
the
oscillator.
multi-wave oscillator that people are using for healing. But they're kind of like C's around C's around C's going in opposite directions. And this supposedly generates incredible health benefits. You put them on a fan or something like that.
Actually,
we
we can talk about that too, because we have the fan right here.
Right, but we didn't have that. We ordered we ordered them the sort of discs that are embedded in.
We can maybe we won't
ceramics.
jump around too much, but we'll talk about this too.
Yeah,
if you like, we can get back
next
to
time
this.
if we don't have time. But
No,
anyway,
we
yeah.
don't have time.
But that's how it works. So anyway, so that's another big thing that's going around, the multi-wave oscillators. And apparently we're trying to find, an affordable way, because they're several $1,000s if someone builds them for you, and you
Right.
sit in a chair and they're kind of really big.
Right.
So
Yeah. I think doesn't Shauna have one of those?
Yes, she does.
Yes, she
and
does,
she's going to bring it
and she
in
loves
October.
it. Or
Yeah.
someone was going.
Yeah, there's someone she knows has the same one, and she's
And
going to
here in Texas, that's right.
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 So Shona doesn't have to lug hers from Virginia. So
Right.
Yeah.
Just in case people are not aware, the Black Mirror has a compass in it.
it does.
Yeah.
It does. And I don't know why, but somewhere I read someone said you should just get a regular compass. I don't know why they're saying don't depend on the phone.
Right. Well,
Don't know why.
Maybe it's a personal choice.
It could be.
So unfortunately, I don't have image number 3, but I do have image number 4.
Okay, it was pretty much the same. I think I sequenced them that they were, just showing different versions of the same thing.
So yeah, put the picture up, and then I would ask, didn't you say that StreamYard has the ability for people to ask questions?
Yeah. Why don't we get through the presentation a little bit?
Yeah.
You want to do that
Okay.
first?
And then
Okay.
we'll open it up when
All right.
when they've seen the
Okay,
meat of
and
this.
that's just showing you my box of fun with what we use to strip out all the wires and cut them, and
Right.
It's so fascinating because
And
these are not
Chengi's flea comb.
these are not your average gardening tools, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
right.
So
Interesting.
just flip back to that if you would, 1 minute. So there's a bag you'll see of wooden balls.
We got it right here.
Oh, we have it right here. Okay, bravo. So Yannick Van Doorne was saying that he discovered that beechwood has an affinity for copper.
Oh, interesting.
So he has been putting these little wooden spheres like at the ends of the Lakovsky coils. So on each end of the bracelet, he would put one of these. I had to search far and wide to find they said it was beechwood. I hope it was. It came from that country way on the other side of the earth that some people are not satisfied with their products. So it
Right.
said it was beechwood. I hope it was. So but we're
Dowsing
using
was
them too.
beechwood. But so to get into another sideline of all this, okay, so this one of the problems with the soil is that using iron tools, and iron tools is trouble with the magnetism, has trouble. It dries out the soil.
Yes,
And
iron
it helps,
flakes.
and it stops the nutrients from working as well as they can. So copper tools are not cheap.
They're
Right.
prohibitively
Yeah,
expensive.
they're really expensive unless
Unless you
you're-
just want to buy one a year.
unless you're Sting with your
Maybe.
biodynamic winery in Italy.
Right.
So
But this was a Victor Schauberger discovery.
right, so this is a Victor Schauberger thing, and it's kind of the same thing. So what you can do is put a piece of copper tubing and fill it with the beechwood on the end, and connect it from the handle to the implement. And that's what I did here.
just
a couple of
Like a
just
plug.
basically drill it and put 2 screws in there.
And you just had to break these up a little bit to
I
fit
had
them in.
they didn't quite fit in. Yeah, I had to kind of cut them apart.
So this is a remedy that Yannick Van Doorne came up with. And he said, okay, it's not exactly a copper tool, and it's not as good, but it's a really close second. If you cannot afford the copper tools,
Right.
then this is a good remedy. And if you can find beechwood, then fill the plug with the beechwood.
Right. So we got this. I put these on our spades and our forks,
Cool.
garden forks.
Also, he reports that, and other people, that the tools go into the soil, they slide in much more easily. So it actually is not as fatiguing to work with these tools that are copper enhanced. And it was Victor Schauberger back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, who discovered that copper would be beneficial for the soil. And he was saying, so turn your plows, put into copper. If you can, put like a copper coating, a sheath on the tines of the plow. And then he developed a plow that actually worked the way a mole or a vole would. And it would cause like a cylindrical turning of the soil rather than just churning it up.
Right.
It made like a cylindrical turn.
Right.
And he used the copper. So then he said that the copper has the property of allowing the soil to retain moisture better and to enhance the microorganisms. And so he presented this to, I guess he was Austrian, to the government in Austria. And he was saying, look, you know, this would, and because of the fertility of the soil being enhanced, you would get a much better crop. You would get the yield would be much higher.
Wouldn't need the artificial fertilizers.
Right.
Which, well, that was the boogaboo. So what happened was they said, well, you know what? These chemical fertilizer companies are up and coming, and this would really cut into their business. So they nixed the whole project.
Right.
So that was the end of that.
Yeah. That seems to
I
happen.
mean, they were blatant about it. They didn't even try to candy coat it. They just said
more frequently than not. Here's a picture of Steve getting all manly.
That's it.
There he is.
Yeah, look at that.
So there's the Lakovsky's coils. There's my little bits of wire peeled off.
Right. So we're saving those little shavings, the little pieces that fall off when you strip the coating off, and we're going to use them to make like orgone generators or something.
Yeah, if we get to that.
Because I got a whole little cup full of those copper chips.
Yeah,
cool.
So that's it. Very simple, and the wire's already coiled, and you just got to like move it a little bit just to get the small opening in there.
Oh, we didn't bring in the wooden stake. You want to talk, and I'll go get it.
What wooden stake?
From the garden.
Yeah, pictures of it.
Oh, you have pictures of it. Okay.
Right.
So I guess we have another Lakovsky coil here in this. Section, or this.
You can probably, if it's the same thing, you could skip it, or we can just go past it quickly. So that's in the Gold Rush apple tree, and you can see it's flowering really nicely.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
Yeah, and like I said, the Gold Rush is probably my favorite eating apple.
And they dehydrate nicely too.
I don't think I've ever had a Gold Rush apple.
No, that's
They're not common.
There's only go to the store. What do you see? 5 apples at the most. There are apparently 250 varieties of apples.
250 varieties of apples.
We're being robbed of our apple diversity.
There actually. This Alan Chadwick said there was something like 250 just in New York State, I think.
Maybe.
Yeah. We need to practice more apple diversity.
Yeah.
Well, we're fortunate that down south of us in Hendersonville, that's apple country.
Right.
And our friend Andrew, who's a permaculture teacher, found a grower who has Gold Rush apples. And so Andrew goes and he buys cases of them. And we all get to, either buy a half a case from him or however many you think you'll use. And we're not big fruit eaters, but sometimes what we'll do is put them in the dehydrator.
Yeah.
Right.
And they enhance that nice sweet flavor. So
that's what we did.
So he's your apple dealer.
Yeah.
He's our apple dealer.
He has an orchard himself, and he had the same problem with the apple trees.
Well, we got our Gold Rush from him.
Right. But
So what do we have here?
So this is the next thing, the coil towers.
So this is it's a stake, it's an antenna. They call this an antenna. And what we've done is stripped top and bottom of this cord and exposed the copper wiring on just maybe an inch or two on the top and on the bottom. Wound it clockwise around a wooden stake. Be sure that the bottom part is under the soil, so it's making contact. And then the top part of the wire should face due north.
Okay.
So get your compass out, due north. And this also will have a radiating effect for, I don't remember, some area around. It's not just isolated to one little place.
Right.
So this will have a radiating effect. I forget how many feet out. But I'm going to put one in each of our raised beds. And we've already done
A few. So the
several.
next picture is kind of the same thing. And then it says our
Rhubarb's
Our
looking
Lady
good.
Our Lady of Logosophia Books is
Right.
behind there.
Yeah,
Well,
we found
have you-
her. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say this looks quite lush.
It's looking good. And I transplanted them. They were all, I didn't put them initially in a good place. So I moved that rhubarb this spring and it's looking really good. And then in the background, I moved, you can just see the green behind the pole. That's horseradish, which is a wonderful perennial that, and it spreads. So that's coming up. That's doing well. And we've got some others in other beds too, the antennas.
There we go. You're getting all Tesla here on this thing.
I love it.
Well, it's and it just we've been up against it for a while with especially with the spraying and the lack of sunlight.
Right.
Has really been hard on our gardens, and it's because we're in a place where it doesn't get a lot of sunlight anyway.
Yeah.
So
and we're
so
also
really
gonna
this is, but it just saying being proactive feels good.
Yes.
On some level, just doing something. Right?
I have to say I was very discouraged. I started gardening when I was in my 20s. So I've been at this for 50 years. And last year's garden was abysmal.
Yeah.
It was so disappointing because of the moles and the voles, which every gardener I know here in this area is having trouble with them. And I have a theory that it might have something to do with all the satellites and all the frequencies, because they love that. When we had the farm, we had an electric fence around each pasture.
Yeah.
And we noticed that the moles and voles dug their tunnels directly underneath the wires. And the wires were above the ground a foot. It wasn't like they were touching the ground, but they liked that. So I think that they're just like going crazy with all these satellites and all the 5G and 4G or whatever's going on. So Steve built these beautiful raised beds and put hardware cloth underneath them. And that was good for about 3 years. And then last year they broke through.
They learned how to jump in.
Yeah.
I think like piled up one on top of each other, and you get over. I don't know, but it's amazing.
It took them 3 years to adapt.
Yeah, they figured it out.
So I'm not sure, but I'm not seeing as many tunnels since we put them in. I mean, the whole garden be covered with tunnels.
Yeah, especially over the winter.
Inside the greenhouse. Now we'll just see whether this has an effect on them.
Right.
So is this straight copper here, or is it wire?
No, it's yellow.
Okay.
You know what it is? It was an old extension cord. It was a 50-foot extension cord that went bad.
Right.
And so, instead of throwing it away, we just looked to see, and sure enough, it was copper inside.
Look at that.
So, look around or even ask your friends if you have any old copper wire.
Yeah.
Just flip back if you would. I want to say one thing about the rain barrels that were in that photo. So in the background by the shed, you can see the two. Actually, there are three. Actually, I have four of these we have 4 of these rain barrels that we bought. Gosh, when we first came to North Carolina, so this is about 20 years old.
They're like $5.
Yeah,
back when people were like trying to get rid of them, old juice barrels.
They used to be for apple juice. Right?
Now you can't get one for under $100. I don't think.
Oh yeah. So we were initially using them on the farm inside the greenhouse to moderate the temperature.
Right.
So you paint it black, and then you have the solar gain. and it really does help you to get through the winter.
Yeah.
I didn't want to spare the space this time, so I was like, oh, I'm not going to put them in. So I put them as rain barrels around the shed, and I've just repainted all of them again. And I noticed that when I initially painted them black, over time, some of it chipped off.
Right.
And the lids deteriorated and crumbled apart from the UV lighting. So that's just a tip. If you're going to do something like this, these were initially white barrels. So make sure if you're going to do this, and if you're using a light colored barrel that the UV light would damage, make sure you keep it all painted and up to date with your painting, because otherwise it could damage the plastic. So these things have lasted us forever. So I just redid them, and you can barely see on the one to the right on next to the shed, I have painted a flower of life design on it, which I just thought looked really cool at the time. And now I'm thinking, well, gee, I think that's probably benefiting the water inside.
Back before flower of life were cool.
That's right. And then I also learned that you can put the Lakovsky coils on top of the barrel. So just sit it on the lid there, and like on the inner ridge, and face it north, and that will also benefit the water. So that's another thing to consider if you're wanting to do this.
Cool.
And that's mainly our tomato section that you're looking at.
Yeah, this U-shaped.
So we're really hoping that we did okay with tomatoes last year.
We did better
because we've got some blight resistant varieties.
So here in the mountains, we have a real problem with late blight. Tomato plants look gorgeous up until the second week in July, and then you could set your clock by it. They all go down like mid-July, overnight. In a week, they're all gone. So I was able to find some very good varieties. I think the name of the company was Seeds and Such. And they have 2 pages of completely just dedicated to blight-resistant tomatoes. So if you have a problem with that, you might want to look at that company, Seeds and Such.
And this is just another of the same in the bed. These are from scallions, right?
Well, I have 3 things in here. On the left is garlic that I replanted. And in the middle, the real leafy ones is leek. And usually what I do is when I buy leek at the store, I leave about 1.5 inches of the root and put it out in the garden, and they'll regrow. And the same with onions. So whether it's spring onions and scallions, leave enough of the root, like 1 inch or so. And then I had the ones on the right are all onions that came up from scallion. So I put them in a separate flower pot in the greenhouse over the winter just to protect them. But they all did so well that a couple of days ago, I went out and took them apart and put them in the bed. And then also when we cook regular onions, instead of slicing it all the way, we'll cut around the core and leave the core and the root and do the same thing. And it will regrow in the garden. So if nothing else, even if it doesn't bulb well, you'll still have wonderful onion tops, greens that you can use in an omelet or something. But onions love to regrow and leek as well.
So again, is that a coated wire?
It is a coated wire.
Okay.
And then there's also, now I haven't looked in enough to this quality, but color in the garden is also effective. So that maps onto the biogeometry and what was his name? The guy who Robert worked with.
Yeah, I remember.
I forget. Anyway, that you can use color coding in the garden for color balancing. And so certain wires, if you have color-coded wire, you can apply it in a way that will be beneficial to certain plants.
Right.
So
this is another Lakovsky.
Another one in the front. Yeah, and I think maybe the next few pictures there are a couple of just pictures of our garden, just how it looks and how it's been looking pretty well. the thing that took the big hit from the freeze was our rhododendrons, which are just always every year. The azaleas, sorry, they're always spectacular, and they're they took a big hit.
They did, and the hydrangeas were killed all the way back to the ground.
But there's our dogwoods are doing beautifully.
Looking good. Looking really. See any bears lately?
They're always around.
We don't
always see them, but
our friends have a hound dog next door who has a particular bark for the bears, so we know when they're around. But we haven't bumped into them.
No, we haven't.
Well, this is a lovely photo.
Isn't that sweet?
Not nice? So you can see actually from the one in the middle, there's a particular tulip. I don't remember what it is, but it comes up pure white, and the darker one is called Queen of the Night. And so it's a great little combination. But then after it's there for a few days, it gets this incredible little pink ridge on them.
Really lovely.
Yeah, very lovely. All right, what else?
Yeah, we've invested in a lot of bulbs, and Chris has been taking the daffodils and splitting them apart and moving them all over the place because it's free. There's lots of free stuff.
I think that's good to bring up.
Chris is the queen of free stuff.
I love getting something out of nothing.
All right. Well, here we can talk about this.
Here we go. Yeah, that's really cool. So this is something else that Yannick Van Doorne talks about, and a lot of the methods that he uses comes from a man by the name of Justin Christofolo, who was a French researcher. See this, I guess, in the 1800s. And he had many different methods for applying these techniques. And this is using magnets. So you get preferably ferrous magnets, which have iron in them. And they're little circles. The little circular magnets that have a hole in the middle. And you put 6 of them in a cluster, and you coat them in beeswax. The beeswax has an affinity for the magnet. For some reason, it enhances. Also, he said that when the bees come back to the hive and they're making the wax, all of the pollen from all of the flowers that they have visited, there's little bits of pollen from all the plants. So all of that is encased in here, and then it's emanated out from the magnetic qualities. So you would place your I don't have a wire, but do we have a wire?
No,
but it's in the picture. So you would place a galvanized, it doesn't have to be copper in this case, but you would place this wire. This is what we bought to go in this, and we're going to cut it. But you would place the wire through it, and you see he has marked with red at one end where it's north. Now this one in particular, it's imperative that you get it due north. So you would put this wire through, and you can bury it in the ground, or you can just lay it on top. Doesn't really matter. So you would run the wire north to south, and it doesn't matter how long the wire is. The wire can just go and go and go for as long as your bed is.
Right.
And then you clip it off. And this has the benefit, same way. It enhances the microorganisms in the soil. And
Very
they call these magnetic antennas.
Right. So if you got a row of something, that's something you could do for that. If you plant, but you have to plant north-south too.
Right. So, well, you have to plant north-south.
Well, if you wanted to go between the rows.
Right. Okay. Another thing that Christoflo did with this particular method was he would have the wire going through, but then he would have if you can picture like a garden fork, where the handle comes out, but then there are 4 tines. Well, he did the same thing with these magnets and the wire. So he would take the wire and run it through, and then he would branch off and have you could have 4 other channels of wire going out into the garden, and you can multiply the effect.
Interesting. So here's another.
That's our front yard. That's our front yard, which is more of a permaculture forest garden. You
Right.
can see on the left that the camellia took a big hit. That's all kind of brown. All the flowers on that died off.
Right.
And the one more in the center is called a Korean spice viburnum.
The white.
The white with the white little, spherical flowers, which
Mhm.
is probably my favorite garden scent. It's just intoxicating. So
And you can
Looks
see
great.
the azaleas are just starting to open there, but they're about at 1/3 the amount of flowers that they ordinarily would
yeah,
have.
and that's called mountain phlox in the
Mountain
front.
pinks, yeah.
Mountain pinks.
Mhm.
So this front yard, when we bought the house, was completely just grass. And then over the years, we made pathways, and the azaleas were all lined up against the wall of the house like wooden soldiers. And that first year we were here, I just brought them all out, put them all over the lawn, and then made pathways around them. Then we added berry bushes. So if you look on the right of the photo, that shrub
Mhm.
is a very tall blueberry called pink lemonade. And it's
Right.
a pink blueberry.
Mhm.
And that's our best
Best.
producer. It's just an incredible
And
plant.
it's a great tasting blueberry.
Cool.
So we brought in apple trees and Asian pear trees and almond tree and
Hazelnut.
hazelnuts, service berries. What else? Wild cherry trees, peaches. We've got peaches. And then the peaches drop and the peach pits start new seedlings. So I'm either yanking them out or potting them up, wanting to give away.
Okay, yeah. So these are some of the stuff that I think pulled off the internet. So
Mhm.
this is someone making a type of Irish round tower to use exactly as we were talking about it, filled with basalt.
And
Is
Yannick,
is that ceramic as well?
it appears to
Yeah,
be
I think that's
clay.
probably, I don't know, maybe a
Uh-huh.
foot and a
like a
half, something like
fired
that.
clay. So Yannick
Right.
was also saying that sometimes the towers are square. They don't have to be round.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I wonder if you could get like, isn't there some kind of like clay flue piping that they use for
I
chimneys
don't know.
that's square? You familiar with that, Robert?
No.
Have you ever seen them?
No.
Back to Lowe's. That was a big date yesterday.
Oh, yeah, we
went,
had
went
fun
to
at Lowe's
Lowe's.
yesterday, yeah. So I think you can probably find something already made that you could piece together and stack
Uh-huh.
out of that chimney flue clay piping.
Yeah, or commission one of our local clay artists.
Right.
And now we have kind of a wide view of your garden here.
Oh, right. That's our.
The infamous water barrels on
There
the
it
right.
There it
is.
is. Yes.
And I have yet to repaint the flower of life on it.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, so it's just showing off as looking kind of nice.
Mhm. Mhm.
Basket of gold on the left there on the bottom, and you can't see them. We got a whole bunch of May apples and trillium behind the barrel.
Right.
Mhm.
And then we have a lot of little fairy-esque figurines and things
Well-
like that up by the stump up there. What?
Also, I'd like to point out the blue lavender wood hyacinth.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do is these are very prolific. And once you plant them, in about 3 years, you've got a clump that is so thick and lush that you can dig it up. And I started out with one little batch I bought a little bag of tubers or
Mhm.
bulbs. And each year, I look and see, well, this clump looks really good. So right after they flower, I dig them up. I go around and I dig all the holes first, and I do the same thing with the daffodils. I dig a bunch of holes. Then when I have time, after they flowered, I have my bag of bone meal, and I go along, put a little bone meal in the hole. Then I go and dig up the bulbs, and I separate them and put several in each hole. And within 3 years, you've got this great show. So I've never seen that in any gardening book ever. I don't know why they don't tell you about that, but it's a wonderful
it's
way.
free?
I don't know. It's a wonderful way to propagate tulips, daffodils, hyacinths. They all multiply. When you have tulips and they've been in there several years and they diminish, the bulbs get small, they divide. So you dig them up
Mhm.
and you take the divisions and you separate them, give them the bulb through the bone meal,
Mhm.
And then you've got free plants. That's how the bulb growers do it. So we've completely covered the yard with wonderful tulips and daffodils and wood hyacinths.
Cool. All right, we got a couple more here. So this one is the antenna that you were talking about, I think.
Mm-hmm.
This is really interesting looking. What's going on here?
That's the fun one.
So, right. So that's
So
the
you-
one. Yeah, that's what I was hoping, but we've been
We just
waylaid in a number of different directions to get things done lately for some reason. But
Mhm.
anyway, so what we bought was so you see on the bottom there's rebar.
Yeah.
And so yesterday we bought a 20-foot rebar pipe and put it on top of the truck. And for some reason we fastened it really well north and south, but we didn't really do east and west very well. so it took a turn coming home and it slid off the front and made, and it was funny too because Chris was on the phone with Bonnie, as you know, and it just went like this huge crash sound, you know. Anyway, nothing broke, which was good.
right.
That is good.
So lesson learned: fasten it left and right along with top and bottom.
Right.
Anyway, so we got this 60-foot piece and not 60, 20-foot piece. So we have so this is like the big deal antenna to bring in the extra juice from the electromagnetics and to marry help the marriage of the sky and the earth together to bring in as much beneficial energy as it can. So the rebar, so there's the rebar, and there's going to be a short piece of copper, and so easy enough. We just bought some clamps. We got some clamps here, and just kind of like the screw-in clamps.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to cut this into pieces and fit it in tightly, and then get like a clamp around it or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think we're going to put the little
Oh, right. These beach
the
balls.
beechwood balls
These beach balls.
in it or on it. I don't know if they'll fit on it because they actually have holes
Oh,
drilled
wouldn't
in
that
them.
be fun? Yeah, you mean
So-
on the end of each?
Yeah, well, they have some, as you can see on the end of the
Right.
twisted,
That's
wire, which
another
is-
thing we could talk about.
which looks like something that Rock Castaldo or
right.
or
Yeah, it reminds me of the selves from Dom and Hor, actually.
Yes, doesn't it?
yes, okay, yeah, that's right. You were
So
there.
you're thinking of putting these little ones?
So I was going to put these on it. So we haven't tried making the coils yet, but so that's what we bought this little thing of copper wire for. So we're going to make the coils out of this, and you would, I guess, wind them tightly around a circle and then pull out. So to get it in two directions, I guess I think it just
that's
takes
another
a little.
one. I wish they had given us a tutorial, but I haven't seen anybody say, how do you actually make those spirals?
So, and this one's a little sophisticated. They just, but it's just basically run some screws through there with some washers and to tighten them on there. And then you put that on the top of the 20-foot rebar. And that's supposed to be, the big antenna for
That's
everything.
the N Plus Ultra. Is that how you say it? N Plus
Yeah,
Ultra?
yeah.
So that goes back again to Justin Cristofalo, back in the 1700s, developed this antenna.
Mm-hmm.
And they're specifically at least 20 feet high. And so if you have a tree and you want to enhance the life of the tree, you would put this next to the tree. But it has to be above the crown of the tree because it's bringing up upper atmosphere energies in. So if you're down below the leaf level, it's not going to be as effective for the tree. But this will cover quite a bit of area. I don't remember how much.
But
So how far down did you have to dig to get a decent
We
foundation
haven't
for
put it in yet.
Well, we haven't put it because we just bought it, and it's so. I don't think we have to dig it too much because we have a T-post where it's going to go,
Mm-hmm.
and so it probably, you could probably get it down a couple of feet, and then
We're going to
tight clamp.
find it.
Yeah, and I'll take my mallet or something and hit the soil down tight, and then we'll clamp it to the T-bar, and we'll see if that holds up.
Right.
You know, we've had a couple of interesting winds here in the last couple of weeks,
We've
so
had incredible
so we'll
wind.
see.
I would also like to mention while we're on this photograph, so these spirals are called Igini, Igini spirals.
Mm.
And they're named for this very sweet Italian man who looks like he's about 100 years old. And he's got his little, I found him in a sidebar. I looked him up because I've heard people mention these Igini coils. So Luigi Igini developed these coils. And what he did was he was emulating what he saw as the energies coming from the sun come out in a coil spiral and with the open part out from the sun. And then it meets the energies coming from the earth, which are tightly coiled at the earth and then open out.
Right.
And they meet at the center.
Right.
And so he developed these to emulate that action.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can see that Yannick has taken it and he's coiled the wire itself. He's
Right.
twisted it, right?
Right. So you can take wire and then clamp it to a drill,
A drill bit.
a drill bit. I mean, not even a drill bit, but you can actually close
Close.
where the bit would go,
Right.
or the drill bit, and then use that. Especially with a variable speed drill, you could do that pretty
Right.
easily.
So you would have like a piece of 2x4 or something that's attached to your workbench and have a screw that you would attach the one end of the wire to double wires to.
Yeah.
And then the other end goes in your drill bit where the bit would go. And that will curl the wire, twist the wire beautifully. So he's done that. And then you can see he's put the beechwood on top.
And then you got to call Misaki to get, well, how long is a Viking foot,
Right.
or whatever,
So is this somebody else's tower or is this your tower?
I believe this must be Yannick because I'm seeing the beechwood balls and I don't know of anybody else who does that. Although it could be someone who took his class.
Yeah.
So you guys are in the process of making yours now.
That's
right.
correct.
So I was, like I said, I was hoping to at least have one started to show you that
Mhm.
aspect of it, but this is, good enough.
Right.
But it was an adventure to get the 20-foot rebar home.
Yeah.
that
So
was how much
have you worked on the coiling part already?
No.
No. So I have to decide whether to do that or whether to use straight up wire. We'll
It'd be
see how it
fun. It'd be
goes.
fun to learn. What did we pay for the rebar? Wasn't that much?
No, it
Like $14?
it may have been around 20 at the most.
Yeah. So affordable.
Now this is not copper coming out of the top though.
It doesn't
No.
need to be
Okay.
For the antenna.
for the antenna.
Right.
And nor does the rebar need to be. Oh, we forgot a very important piece of this. Copper wire is attached to the antenna at the top,
Mm-hmm.
and then you run it down the length of the rebar, and it goes into the ground. Very important part. I'm glad we didn't
Right.
forget
That was this. We just bought lamp wire, which isn't
Okay.
terribly expensive.
Right.
This was like $5 or
So
something.
that's
$6.
a key part of it.
Well, it looks super cool. Just
Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
The whole thing is just like
Yeah.
romper room.
So it's been really nice. It gets us, after a couple of really kind of rough years, it gets you excited about doing stuff in the garden.
Right.
You
Right.
know. And that's another thing that this guy Yannick is doing. So putting copper pyramids over,
Seed trays.
takes us back to the day.
Right.
So putting copper pyramids over the seedlings, which we haven't done.
Mm-hmm.
It would be nice to make that. It's a little work. but-
We usually don't have too much trouble with
Do
seedlings.
you want to tell them the story about the tetrahedron?
Sure.
The power of the tetrahedron is real. So a pyramid is not a tetrahedron. The pyramids have 4 sides.
Right.
Tetrahedron has 3.
Pyramid is a half of an octahedron.
And
Mhm.
it's the representation of the element of fire. So take it away.
So,
Steve. This
right.
is a very funny story.
So, many years ago, we were, when we were starry-eyed and young, we moved down here. We were going to, found some sort of wonderful community. And so one of the things that we were playing with is understanding the sacred geometry shapes, what are called the Platonic solids, which are the 5 shapes that fit exactly inside a sphere.
Mm-hmm.
And so the tetrahedron, which is triangles on all sides, is the base, is the first one generally considered, and it is of the element of fire. So we said, all right, well, we'll do some experiments. So we built, we'll build them out of plywood. I don't know, meditate and make, life-size sculptures, whatever, life-size tetrahedron. So we made one, and it was in the winter. With this friend of ours, Claire, who's now gone, very smart woman,
very smart.
And so we made it, and it was very cold.
Out of 2x4s.
It's up on the farm. It was getting like below freezing. It was very cold. So the house that we had a garage underneath, because everything's on the hillside, and then the house was over the garage. So we put the tetrahedron, built it, and then it got cold, so we just put it into the garage. So that night we were there you go.
Oh, good.
So that night we were really warm up in our beds.
Our bedroom was right over the garage.
Our bedroom was right over the garage. And we're saying, wow, that's really weird. It's strange, because it was pretty cold up there. Mm-hmm. And all right. So then the next night we're lying in bed, and I felt like I was being baked from the inside.
Like internally hot.
Yeah, it wasn't just like I was feeling hot. I was just like I felt like I was inside an oven baking. And I just turned and I was like, holy shit, it's the tetrahedron.
We looked at each other and said, do you think it could be the tetrahedron?
So went down to the basement. I took it apart, and the whole thing disappeared. All the heat. And the
wow.
So let that be a lesson to you. If you're freezing, build a tetrahedron under your bed. Something.
There you go.
So so we didn't get to after that.
Talk about free energy.
We didn't get to the rest of them. The rest of the.
That's right. It was so funny.
This actually looks like kind of an interesting site.
Yeah, it does look good, because they're showing you how to construct them.
Yeah, well, that looks like it's got the basics down, which is nice.
Nice.
Yeah. Speaking of sites, you guys gave me some websites that you.
Oh, good. Did we?
I sent you some, and I didn't get a chance to look at
what did you send?
I don't remember. But there was a couple of sites with them. Yeah. I don't know. And also, if anybody has any questions, we'd be happy to.
So this is Electroculture Basics. This is one of the sites that you sent me. So let's bring it up here. Just show people.
Yeah, because I think we covered all the.
Right there.
I think we got
pretty much everything we know. Yeah, is this that old one? I kind of like this one.
Oh, that's funky. Retro transcription.
The new green wizards, leeks as big as the arm of a gardener.
Oh,
strawberries,
right. Yeah.
As beautiful as oranges. Garlic, even 4 times more beautiful. It's the giant vegetable garden.
Well, we'll be the first to let you know, Robert. If
See, this is totally Tartarian, because you had to grow giant vegetables for the giants.
Right.
Right.
Did you make Finhorn look miniature?
Exactly, dwarfing Finhorn. This gets into telluric currents, cosmic waves, Earth's magnetic field. This is cool. I'll put some links in.
Well, I like this site because I like this site because
copper antenna.
Yeah, so this is the thing we were talking about. So this is all old stuff. This is there's and just playing with it.
Oh wait, now what's that? What's that?
Something
What's
with the
the letter
irrigation.
E? Attraction, crops.
Yeah.
Basic. Oh, wonderful.
This is also very Uranus in Taurus territory.
Oh, I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's do another one. Let's see what we get up here.
Yeah, there's so much. There's so much information, and like I said, we've got these old books we've had for 20 years.
Oh, we were going to talk about the oscillator when we're done with this.
This is another site, and it looks like Electroculture for beginners.
Right. Cultivate, elevate. So this is the guy. This guy knows a lot. the young guy.
So this is Matt Roski.
And he, it looks like he's got interesting things to sell. He's got like capsules of dragon's blood and things like that.
And he's very much into like the beneficial effects of pearl powder for the human body to take it internally.
And I just saw that his most recent YouTube is he's talking about Tartaria. So
he's big on Tartaria. Well, the antennas, all the antennas on the old buildings. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think there's a there. All right, we got one more.
there is. There's no doubt that our real history still needs to be learned.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Absolutely.
wonderful that this is catching on, and I think Matt Roski is really promoting it for Americans, and Yannick Van Doorne, he also interviews people all over the world, and so like it's catching on in America, it's catching on in Canada.
So this is another electroculture blog, the
This
garden
is one I've
Yeah.
not seen.
Yeah. I just did a quick search. I just wanted to send you a couple of things so you got an idea. Actually, we grew one of those cats.
Yes, we did. Up
We
on
Look
the
at the size of
farm.
that thing.
Yeah,
This is giant food.
Yeah,
You're gonna laugh, but
yeah.
we did on the farm grow a cauliflower that big.
we auctioned
This
it
is
off.
really interesting. This
Isn't it
photo.
wonderful? I
This
love it.
photograph. Really trippy.
Now, some
Yeah,
of these
I love
books
these
are
old
available as PDF downloads, these older books. So
This
if
looks
you
like
look
the
up-
tower you guys just showed me.
Yeah, but it almost looks
Yeah.
like water, like he's
No,
watering.
there's something coming out of it, but it's the
Yeah.
shape of.
Oh, like the
like-
round tower.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, something.
So if that's copper, just the fact that the water is passing through it, it will activate it somehow. And Matt Roski
Yeah.
also was talking about the hoses that you use. If you can we have really good quality rubber hoses that I had when I worked in the greenhouses in New York, and I brought them with me. And they're still going strong. So that's a very good thing. And the vinyl is not good for the water. But he was talking about if you can get old linen hoses from fire departments remember they used to use the cloth?
Yes.
Sometimes you can find them for sale online on Etsy or something. And he said that's much better for the quality of the water.
Oh, look at this. I love
Oh,
it.
Isn't
I love
that
this
wonderful? Look at it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And we also have a Schauberger coil on where our water comes in.
We do on our water
So
main.
it looks like just one of those little spirals with coming to a top, and
It's
it
copper.
and it's sealed on both ends, but it rests against the pipe that enters the house. And so at least it helped with the energetics, because one of the things that he discovered is that water in a straight line dies,
That's true.
and it needs to have movement. So he had all these things with channels inside the pipes and things like that to get the water to move inside it.
Carl Salem Lemstrom
Hmm.
of Helsinki University. Geophysicists studying the aurora borealis or northern lights began to wonder if they had an effect on plant growth,
Uh-huh.
because he knows that the trees in the far north grew
That's true.
rapidly despite the short growing season. This led him to start experimenting with the effects of atmospheric electricity or germination in plant growth. Lemstrom's results attracted international attention. He was able to conduct some of his experiments later on in collaboration with other scientists in Sweden, Germany, and at Durham College of Science. I guess this is the yield here.
Hmm.
This is the type of history that's just completely buried.
Oh, definitely.
And
very intentionally.
when we get the bad version of agri-science.
Now, keep in mind that you can
Degraded
also
version.
Yeah.
also use the antennas like on the stick with the copper wrapped around the stick. That's why we got this smaller gauge copper wire.
Yeah, but look at this, the
Let
same
me just
thing.
fin- You can
It shows how long this stuff has been around.
you can put these around a stake in a potted plant, so
Uh-huh.
you can use them for your house plants or your plants on the deck.
It was
So you can
1910.
still make the
1910.
antennas.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, over 100 years ago, and then what happened at that time, of course, is the
Second industrial revolution is what
Yeah.
happened.
yeah,
Yes.
and which manifested itself in
Yeah, look at that.
PNK with
That's
the
right.
artificial fertilizers.
Right.
And that's really, and that's the Rockefeller.
Oh, see
and
now.
it was all, that's what buried all this.
Right.
So this photo is Justin Christoflo and his wife in the garden with now
Electrified cabbages.
they
Look at the size
actually
of those
did
things.
use electricity as well, and that I think is a little bit beyond my capabilities. But
I love
there
this
there are
stuff.
some people who are applying electricity.
Right. And this is, at the dawn of electricity.
You
And they
know,
went right into this.
yeah, exactly. So if you look for a lot of these images now, uh, they are licensed. Like it's really hard to find.
What do you
lot of
mean your
these-
license?
Yeah.
Well, like Dreams Time, Getty Photos, or Getty
Right.
Images.
Right.
Like they've
Oh.
gobbled up all these old images, a lot of public domain stuff. And if you want to be able to use it, you have to purchase a license to use them. So just having these photos and these illustrations on this page alone is kind of a treasure trove.
So
Look at
Right.
this.
Christoflo's book is available for download, or you can purchase it. There's some of these old books you can get PDFs.
This is awesome.
Oh, look at that! See, that's the electric, actually. Or is that
Andrew
or is that
Goldsworthy. Have you run into Andrew Goldsworthy?
No. Oh, wait a minute. Is that Goldsworthy who did all the mosaics with the leaves? Is that
I don't
Andy
no, no.
Goldsworthy? That's a different person.
I don't think it's the same person. Yeah. I wouldn't be like wiring up all my tomatoes, but
Yeah.
This is great.
But true, and all those images are, well, anything over 100 years old is public domain.
But
Right.
what they've done is they've grabbed them.
Yeah,
That's what they do.
yeah, because I'm always doing image searches for my book, and in the last like 3 or 4 years, the first 50 images are all Getty images that
That's
come
right.
up.
That's right.
Now, I have to give credit to Bonnie's husband, Gary, because he was the one who sent me Matt Roski's video.
Mhm.
He's like, look at this. This is so much fun. And that got me started. I was like, oh, I remember that and then I started off rolling, and there are so many videos. It's a wonderland of
Yeah.
videos. So you can learn this stuff like in a week. You'll be an expert at it.
So why don't we open up the Q&A period?
We'll do
here.
that, and then we'll talk about the multi-wave oscillator, how to make your own.
Why don't you just start talking about that right
Okay.
now? And
So
if
I
people have
found-
any questions, just go ahead, type them into chat, and then we'll put them up here. We'll address them.
Yeah.
So
Hey, chat.
I love the sidebars, and in the sidebar, I found this man he just calls himself Kelly, and he's a tinkerer.
Mhm.
And he decided he was going to make his own multi-wave oscillator inexpensively. So he said, what you do is, first of all, the multi-wave oscillators, as Steve was saying, they're like the Lakovsky coils, like embedded. Okay, like it looks like a labyrinth. Everybody's kind of seen them. You'll know it when you see it. So you get 2 of those images, or the coils, whatever, and you buy these fans online. And what it is a cooling fan for the computer. And it's got little feet. And I think they were very inexpensive. I don't remember what I paid, but very, very affordable. And he takes the grid off here and he said you could even cut the blades off if you wanted to, because you don't need the blades. All you need is a circular motion. Oh, good. Hold it up.
This is my artistic rendering.
So sort of like
It's like
that.
these embedded C's that are going in opposite directions. Right.
So he directed his viewers to an Etsy site where this person makes really high quality. He does Lakovsky
ceramics,
coils and
right?
ceramics. Yeah, he does these multi-wave oscillator embedded discs that you can buy, and it's a really high quality. I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of the company, but if I find it, I could email it to you, and you could put it in the show
Come to
notes.
think of it, they're taking a long time to get
It's
here.
coming from England,
Oh.
so they'll probably get here tomorrow. So you take this grid off, and you glue the disc to the stem of the fan, and you have one on one side and one on the other side, and you sit in between them, and that's your multi-wave oscillator. So those impressions from that image are doing their magic on your body and helping you with all kinds of health issues. Supposedly, we'll see.
And yeah, and you can just put them on your regular ceiling fans and have them going.
Yes, yes. So we did actually buy a package
Some
of
small-
smaller discs that we're going to glue onto the ceiling fan.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be doing something wonderful, I'm sure, to the atmosphere in the room.
I like it.
I know, isn't it great?
Yeah. You're having a good old time with
I
it.
get giddy with this stuff. I love
Okay.
it.
Mhm.
I just love it. So
have we put everybody to sleep? No.
no,
No, I think we have a pretty interesting chat going on.
I'm imagining
very
some
very,
people know
very
about this.
stimulating, but I haven't seen any questions yet.
No, we know.
No
you know,
questions.
we know.
So you must have
All right, guys, come on.
attended to all their curiosity.
Well, yeah. I mean, we know. Lynn in Panama has this really wonderful grove. She has a nursery, really, right?
Doesn't
if I'm
she?
not mistaken.
Yeah, she does grow stuff, and she sells a few things on the side at the farmers market.
Nice.
Yeah, so she's put a lot of effort into that over the years.
And I know a lot of people in the chat room grow just from comments and what
Yeah.
have you.
So we'll put all the links to the various websites in the notes for the show, and of course, links to your various websites. You want to talk about them now?
Yeah, sure. We have Chris's Etsy page,
I made a sale.
which she made her
I'm so
sale from
excited!
today.
I made a sale
So
today.
that's
Somebody
got
bought my wool. Oh
so-
my god!
so that has her wool and her original paintings.
Mhm.
Right.
And then she has the Fine Art America. I'll go grab a painting. Since there
Oh,
might be
do.
one nearby.
So yeah, so on there's two different pages for my artwork. So Etsy has, as Steve said, like the original painting itself. And then on Fine Art America, I put the images up and you can get like a reproduction of the art, either in any form you like. So it can either be on canvas, it can be on metal, it can be
Right.
on paper, it could be a postcard, it could be whatever.
Coffee mug, T-shirt.
Coffee mugs, t-shirts, and so on and so forth.
Right.
So
There's one of her. I have to get that.
they make them to order. Yeah.
Nice. Are you guys going to do a book on the electric garden?
A book.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's plenty of stuff out there. I don't think
Oh,
it's
I hadn't
needed.
thought about it.
I don't think it's needed. But I think if things go well, we at least get a video going.
You should do it. You should do it. I was thinking you should do a time lapse thing every day. Go out and take a picture. Right, digital picture every day of the same thing,
Right.
and then when 3 months out, you just string all those pictures together, and
That'd be fun.
see what happens. Right?
Okay.
Yeah, it would be fun.
Okay.
Let's see. I don't think question. Here we go. We got a question. Let's put it up here. From Neo, do you use heirloom seeds to be free from GMO seeds? Great show.
Thank you.
Sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. I usually don't like to get hybrids at all.
Mhm.
But in the instance of the tomatoes, I did buy hybrids, but they're not GMO. So I have no problem. I have no argument with traditionally formed hybrid seeds where someone actually goes to the plant and, takes their little paintbrush and, hand pollinates them, to make a new variety.
Right.
Because that I feel is working with the plant nature spirits. But I wouldn't touch anything that's got GMO for my garden.
Right.
Even in my compost pile, and we're very careful about not buying food that's GMO. But if by some weird chance, if we go to a restaurant or something, we get some food in here, or if we have maybe a guest downstairs who brings something in, I won't even put it in my compost pile.
So Jesse has a question. I'm not quite sure. I'll put it up here. I'm not quite sure. Maybe you'll know what he's talking about. Or sometimes Jesse can be a she. Let's see what Jesse has going on here. I'm wondering if there's anything you've encountered stateside, like an allotment in the UK, my patio is in the shade. Do you understand that question?
Yes, well, allotments in the UK where, I believe where the government actually gives people for like community gardens. So that's
Okay.
my understanding of what that is a community garden.
Okay.
So yes, I've encountered that. It's all over the place. So that you must have some place where people in your community have the ability to have a space of gardening. So if not, maybe you would be the one to start it, and you just find, if you need to go to public land and ask permission, you go to town hall and say, this is what I'd like to do.
Right.
Or even better, I think would be easier, go through your cooperative extension.
So one of the things that I would suggest, as if I may sort of just interject here, is that in the interest of preserving one's property rights, I would say if you do something like that, put it into a trust. Because I feel like the whole idea of property rights is going to get really wonky very quickly. So if you can put it into a trust or a foundation, you might be able to preserve that plot of land. Just saying.
Right. So I think that would be, if you're doing it just to have a summer garden, that's a lot of work to go through. All that paperwork.
If you're going to keep
However,
it,
if you want that to be, a special thing that you keep for perpetuity,
yes.
then that would be the way to go. But if it's just for a summer garden for vegetables, it might be onerous to go through that.
Anybody else? Somebody asked a question and then it got answered. So in the chat, how about that? We got a smart chat group.
I'll bet
we do. We do.
Let's see. Any more questions?
I remember
Sigurd's here. I gotta bring Sigurd into the show. I just got in from spending all day gardening. The sink is still strong.
So Sigurd, are you going to try some of these things? I'd love to know. Yeah, Did it pique your interest?
You could come back and look. I think he's game. Sigurd's game.
Is there any? I'd like to know if there's anybody out there who's lit on. I lit up the minute I saw this. I was like,
"How could you not?" It's got that quality of novelty.
And it's novelty is so important in life, but it's like rolling off a log. You can pretty much do it. I mean, I'm game. Yay!
Yeah. All right, Sigurd.
Yay! Send Robert some pictures.
Yeah, and like I said, and the good thing is it's not expensive.
Yeah.
Half of the stuff we have lying around.
That's the beautiful part, right? I mean, just think if we could spread this in a much broader sort of net, right? And just obliterate,
what are they going to do about it?
The absolutely barbaric form of technology that they've decided to use on our agriculture.
It is. It's an act of violence. Yeah.
So here's another one. It's a question from our friend, not far from you in North Carolina. Do you modulate the pH level in the water you use?
No. We just run the water that comes out. Actually, we moderate modulate the pH level in our bodies, and that's Chris makes this mixture of bicarbonate of soda
and magnesium powder.
No, it's just the magnesium. What is it that goes in the and magnesium powder?
Oh, were you talking about the marshmallow fluff?
Yeah, I'm talking about the marshmallow fluff.
Okay, so, we don't do the pH level in our garden water. What I will say, I'll backtrack, and where Steve mentioned that we have this coil that goes around the water main in our house. That's what's coming into the house,
right?
And that activates the water that makes it structured water,
right?
And that. Hopefully that's coming out through the hose at the other end. So we're getting structured water in the garden, but not pH modified. I don't know how.
And ours runs through a Berkey.
For the house, it runs through a Berkey.
Just for us.
So check this out. This is how new ideas are germinated. Let me put this up here. I'm part of a local group working to be a parallel self-sufficient economy in Massachusetts, going to introduce
great.
this concept.
Great.
You know
Great.
wonderful. Joan W.
Mhm.
My 528.
So to get back to the pH,
That's great, Joan.
this is a mix Chris makes with blackstrap molasses and baking soda, and you just take a teaspoon of it, kind of half hour or so after you've eaten a meal, and that's supposed to lower your pH that you can measure through your spittle and through your urine.
Mhm.
And we actually bought little strips to test, and it dropped, really it dropped from went from like 4 to 6 to 7, but just by doing that.
Yeah.
So our internal pH, and then once you get into the base side of
could look it up.
things, cancer can't live.
Cancer can't live in a pH balanced
Mhm.
in an alkaline situation. So, if you're having any kind of problems with even stiffness and that kind of thing, I think it was like 3 parts molasses. I'm using unsulfured blackstrap,
Mhm.
or
We'll share that magnesia recipe.
well, this is kind of it, but let me finish this one first. So I think it's like 3 parts molasses to 1 part baking soda.
Mhm.
I'll show you. And then very funny, it does
It
expand,
expands like crazy.
and it looks like marshmallow
And
fluff.
if you leave it out of we've had it pop off the tops of the container. It expands if you leave it out for an hour.
Wow.
So, and it tastes okay. It tastes okay.
Here's another question. It's a pretty basic one, but I think you could probably address this. Clay soil. What is the
Oh, boy.
best to amend soil for gardening?
Well, we tried that for about a decade here
Mhm.
in the clay soil. So the best way to amend clay soil is to ignore it and build above it.
Yeah, well,
Mm.
Really,
I'll give another answer.
Unless you have massive amounts of topsoil to import.
Mhm.
There's 2 more answers to that. That's not the only one. So
Okay.
you could add gypsum. Is
Mhm.
very good for using to amend clay soil. And then the other one is you could just keep adding more natural ingredients. Like, we get leavings from stables. There's a wonderful thrift shop around the corner from us that they take in rescue animals, so farm animals.
Mhm.
And they have this beautiful little, wonderful little piece of acreage where they have like maybe 10 mini barns painted red, and there's a little stream. They have a gift, like a thrift shop where you can go and buy things that supports feeding the animals.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I can go and get the hay and manure mixture when they clean the stables. So every year I go and get some of that. I either compost it or I put it like right on top of the gardens. I don't have to worry too much about the manure because it's mixed with the hay. So it's not so strong it's going to burn.
Right.
Otherwise, you wouldn't put straight manure into a garden.
Right.
So that if you do that, also when you cut your lawn, and if you mow in your leaves too and grind all them up, you can mix the dry material into the clay soil,
Mhm.
and that will help to lighten it. It's been a real struggle with us with the clay
Yeah.
soil. It was very
Yeah. I
challenging.
think once we went to the raised beds, it was
Well,
much better.
we imported some soil.
But also we mixed in the leaf mulch.
The leaf mulch is really important.
And the hay and what have you.
So here's our container of it's 1 baking soda to 3 molasses, and I'm telling you, I started out in another container in a bowl, in an open bowl, because once it gets room temperature, it just grows like topsy.
Right.
And you just take like 1 teaspoon of it, and it's very fluffy, like marshmallow fluff.
Mhm.
And you could almost convince yourself that it's chocolatey.
Mhm.
It's not really, but it's a little salty.
Mhm.
But anyway,
Yeah. So
that's what I said.
Fran wants the recipe, so maybe you could just
That
send
is
that
the
to her.
recipe.
That is the recipe. Okay.
Oh, she wanted the recipe for the magnesium.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
All I do is I have like a 16-ounce bottle of water,
Mhm.
take it from the Berkey filter,
Right.
and I put a pinch of baking soda and a pinch of magnesium powder.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it.
That's
and
it.
then you sip it throughout the day.
Cool.
That's what I do.
Good deal.
I would recommend, if she wants to know more about that, the man to go to is Dr. Circus, Sircus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He has so much generous information on his website about pH and how to really raise the pH in the body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I subscribe to his newsletter.
Yeah.
He's
Cool.
very generous.
Is that Mark Circus? Is that his name?
I believe it's Mark. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
and he does videos too.
Right. Yeah. I think I've seen some of the stuff. Okay. I think we've done a stellar job here today.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Very positive, solution based.
Right. We can talk about any of the batshit crazy that's been going on.
Yeah.
Good. We'll leave
No,
it.
we were really well behaved today.
There's plenty of time for that. It ain't going away soon.
No, we can check in on that just about any time.
Right.
So we'll have all the links for your publishing company, Logosophia Books,
Right,
Krys's
Logosophia
Etsy
Books.
page, and some of the websites that we popped up today. I'll put those in the notes.
You know
And,
what? I'll also send you. I really like Yannick Van Doorne, so maybe I'll try to send you a link to his websites and maybe some of his videos.
I can just find them. You don't have to do that.
Yeah. Okay. Yannick Van Doorne.
Okay. I guess we'll see you in about a month, huh?
Sounds good.
And it'll be May.
It'll be May, and I guess we can get an update on your gardening efforts then too.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Things will be really popping if we
Cool.
don't get a late freeze, which we might.
All right.
All
Once
right,
again,
Robert.
ladies and gentlemen, it's the Crimis. Thanks,
All
kids.
right. Thanks,
Good-
everybody.
Good hanging out with you.
And we'll see you in a month, and I'm sure I'll see you elsewhere in between then. You guys take
Okay.
good care.
All right.
Okay?
Excellent.
Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks so
Thanks.
much.
There they are. Another great episode with our friends from North Carolina, bringing you solutions, things that you can employ in your everyday life and enhance your life, especially when it comes to growing food, which seems to be getting trickier and trickier, especially when we hear that they're starting to inject cattle and poultry with mRNA. You know they're going to find a way to put the mRNA in the plants themselves, and more self-sufficiency, more independence. But as we move into Aquarius, we're going to need help from other people, right? We can't do this alone. And this is the next exercise in our evolutionary development, to be able to take our independent point of view, our very inventive, pioneering mindsets as individuals, and then merge them together with other people so that we can perform the functions that theoretically the world around us should be, but isn't, because they've taken a different path. And we got all this Aries energy in the air. We got the true node moving into Aries in July 25th. And that's pioneering energy. Let's get it done energy. That's make it happen energy. So let's make it happen together. All right. I'll be back here on Sunday night for Sunday Night Astro Live. And again, thanks to the Crimis. I'll have a link if you want to help our friend Chris out and get him elected as the top CBD purveyor in Austin. And that would go a long ways towards getting us some really good local press and some of the just rewards that are due to his product and his intense dedication to it. All right. Thanks for being here. Use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart to step what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix, and you've been on the Friday Farcast. Bye for now.